Have you ever stopped to think about what it really means to be poor in an increasingly technological world? In the United States of the future, where everything is automated, connected, and controlled by artificial intelligence, will poverty still mean just a lack of money? Or will it become a new form of exclusion, a social sentence from which no one can escape? Today, we already live in a country where access to technology defines opportunity. But imagine what will happen when everyday life depends entirely on smart devices, identification chips, and algorithms that decide who deserves credit, employment, and even medical care. And what if, in that world, being poor literally means having no access to the system, not being able to exist digitally? The rich will have their lives optimized by AI, living in smart cities with thinking houses and flying cars. But what about the rest? What will happen to those who can't afford to upgrade themselves? Will the poor of the future be treated as second-class citizens or as disposable data in a system that only recognizes those who consume? The big question is, in a country that promises freedom and equality, will the true crime of the future simply be not having enough money to exist? In the future of the United States, wealth will no longer be just a matter of comfort, it will be a matter of evolution. While the rich invest in genetic enhancements, neural implants, and full access to artificial intelligence, the rest of the population will remain trapped in an outdated body and mind. And when the difference between rich and poor stops being economic and becomes biological, can we still say we belong to the same species? Large corporations are already turning human beings into products. Those with money will be able to enhance memory, increase IQ, control emotions, and even slow down aging, but those without it, they'll be condemned to age, forget, and feel pain, while watching a new race of perfect, optimized humans take over the world. Will meritocracy still exist when the elite literally buys their own intelligence? And how can anyone compete with someone who never tires, never fails, and never forgets? Inequality will no longer be a social line, it will become a vast abyss between those who can pay to evolve and those who can't. Imagine a world where success no longer depends on effort, but on a software update. Where those with less money aren't just poor, they're outdated, obsolete, invisible. Can such a future still be called human? Or are we already witnessing the birth of humanity to point zero and the silent disappearance of those left behind? Have you ever wondered what will happen when there's no more need for human labor? Today, automation already replaces drivers, cashiers, clerks, translators, and even doctors. But what happens when even creativity, humanity's last refuge, is surpassed by artificial intelligence? What remains for those who live by effort, sweat, and dedication? When the world starts valuing only algorithms? In the future United States, machines won't just work faster and cheaper, they'll do it better. While robots build, create, manage, and decide, millions of people will lose the very purpose that has always guided humanity, working to live. But if work disappears, what will define a person's value? Corporations will say that automation is progress, but progress for whom? While the richest enjoy guaranteed income and total control over machines, the working class will become disposable, an invisible mass, kept under control by promises of a universal basic income. But is that really freedom, or just a new form of dependence? And when people realize their skills no longer matter, what comes next? Revolt, despair, submission. Imagine a society where unemployment isn't the exception, it's the rule. Where human effort is seen as waste, and the future belongs only to those who have the power to program. The question remains, when the last job is taken by a machine, what will be left of human pride? And who will still have the courage to fight for something that no longer exists? In the future United States, poverty won't just mean a lack of money, it will mean exclusion from the system. In a fully connected world, where everything is digital, those without access to technology will simply be erased from society. No credit, no digital history, no identity. But what happens when even the right to exist depends on a code? The rich will live in smart cities with filtered air, autonomous streets, and clean energy. Meanwhile, the poor will be pushed into abandoned zones, the so-called technological deserts, where progress never arrives. Will the poverty of the future be measured not by hunger, but by disconnection? Imagine a country where even food is AI printed, housing is controlled by sensors, and healthcare is monitored by automated systems. Without access to these resources, the poor of the future will be invisible, someone the system no longer recognizes as a citizen. But what happens when survival depends on passwords, chips, and digital permissions, and you have none of them? Inequality will no longer be just economic, it will be technological. While the rich have access to genetic enhancements, longevity, and augmented intelligence, the poor will be seen as biological remnants of an outdated era. Will the future of humanity be divided between those who evolve and those left behind? And when there exists an elite that can literally live forever, what will be the fate of those who can't even make it to the next month? After all, in a world ruled by efficiency, will there still be room for those who can't keep up with the machine? In the future United States, freedom will not be guaranteed by laws, it will be granted by a system. The poor won't just be those without money, but those the algorithm deems inefficient, useless, or unproductive. And when your reputation, access, and even housing depend on a digital score, what happens if the system decides you're not trustworthy? Imagine a future where every citizen has a social index calculated based on behavior, financial history, and even opinions on social media. The rich, with high scores, will enjoy privileges, better housing, free transportation, exclusive opportunities. But the poor, monitored 24/7, will live under constant surveillance. Any mistake, any delay, and the system simply disconnects them. Could you live knowing every choice you make is judged by a machine? In digital ghettos, the poor won't be imprisoned by police, but by firewalls. Without access authorization, they won't be able to enter smart zones, use public transport, or even buy automated food. The government won't need force to control the masses, just a permission block. And when your freedom can be switched off with a click, can that still be called life? But the scariest part is that everything will seem normal. The rich will say it's to maintain order. Corporations will justify it as system efficiency. And the poor, voiceless, will watch their own social disappearance, condemned by invisible algorithms. The question is, when obedience becomes the only path to survival, does something called freedom still exist? In the future United States, the promise of the American dream may finally die, not with a revolt, but with the silence of exclusion. For decades, people believed anyone could succeed through effort and determination. But in a fully automated world, governed by artificial intelligences and controlled by digital corporations, social mobility may become nothing more than a distant memory. The rich will live in smart cities surrounded by invisible walls of technology, places where everything is clean, efficient, and regulated by algorithms that guarantee absolute comfort. Meanwhile, the poor will be confined to the so-called analog zones, forgotten regions without digital infrastructure where progress never arrives. And the cruelest part, the ladder to escape will simply cease to exist. How can you compete in a market dominated by machines that never sleep, never fail, and are designed by those already at the top? How can you have a voice in a society where politics is defined by data, not votes? And when success depends on access to technology, something the poor will never have, what remains but resignation? Inequality will no longer be merely economic, it will be existential. There will be those who live inside the system and those who live outside it, and the latter won't even be seen. AI will decide who has the right to the future and who must remain forgotten in the past. Perhaps the greatest danger isn't poverty itself, but the disappearance of hope. When the world becomes a closed club, reserved for the few, the rest of humanity becomes mere background noise, invisible, irrelevant, and replaceable. The final question is, when technology builds borders that not even money can cross, who will dare call that progress?